YouTube at the moment. Well, that's a bit of a new experiment. And what I'm going to do today is we're going to have a bit of a look for some insects. It's a nice sunny day, as you can see behind me. It's warmed up a bit. It's still not particularly warm, but it's not at all bad for April. So we're going to have a look, see if we can find any insects flying around, or ideally sitting around so we've got a chance of seeing them on the broadcast along the edge of Perivale Wood, which is what you can see around me. So I'm going to turn the camera around, go and have a look out. So you're looking forward. We will walk along, see what we can see. So you can see here we're on the edge of the wood, along a nice sunny bank. Lots of lesser celandine in flower, that's the yellow flower. And lots of bluebells coming into flower, that's the bluish pink flower that you might be able to make out. We'll have a closer look later. There's a few other flowers through here as well. I might point out some of them as we go. And I'm going to walk along here and see how successful we are in finding any different types of insect. See which ones we can identify. Won't be able to identify all of them, certainly not to species level out in the field. And I might, if I'm feeling particularly diligent, use my net here to capture one or two and allow me to have a look at them properly later on. Depends what I'm doing. It's not the easiest thing to operate an insect net and a camera whilst paying attention to what people are saying on the broadcast at the same time. So I may not do a lot of netting today. But it's already, I can certainly see insects flying. We'll come in here and see if I can get into this one. So just so you might be able to make out an insect flying. I'm going to put the net down so I can pay attention to the insect. And it's on the edge of the path now. So let me see if I can get zoomed in on this insect. Ooh, no, it's not behaving. Just give me a second. Work out where I'm looking. I think it's there. But I'm obviously wrong. I see where I'm looking, okay. So, beside this yellow flower off to the side, you might be able to see, hovering in the air now, and just flying off, a bee fly. It's Bombylius major. It's a fairly common insect, quite a few of them around, but they're quite popular. Hover along, little fluffy bodies. Hello, Isa. Good to see you. Yes, bee fly. So there's a bit of a project here in the UK of bee fly watch, where people are asked to go out and see if they can see these bee flies and report them so that we've got a better understanding of their population. Here's another one. Another two. They're all flying, of course. So yes, anyone watching from the UK, certainly, if you can go out, I'll try and get a nice picture of a bee fly so you know what you're looking for. There's one on this primrose here that's just flown up into the celandine. There we go. This is Bombylius major, the dark bordered bee fly. And that one is the commonest of the bee flies we have here in Britain. It's flown out of scope again. Commonest of our bee flies. And we're asking people to go out in the countryside, see if you can see any. And if you can, if you look up bee fly watch on the internet, type that into Google or whatever search engine you use, there'll be a page there where you can submit your sightings, and then scientists, dipterists who study the flies can learn more about these species, where they are, when they're flying, when they're coming out, and lots of useful information. There's a hoverfly here on this plant. Let me try and zoom in. It is remarkably difficult to find the thing you're looking for. They're not dandelions, or they're a related family. They're a lesser celandine. These are all native. They're a plant that occurs in woodland. Oh, there's the fly. So here's a hoverfly. I'm not going to be able to identify the species, I don't think. Mainly because I'm not very good at hoverflies. That probably is doable. So these are all native plants, Isa. They're associated with woodland. And this bit of woodland has been here a long time. And here's I'll just go into close to this hoverfly. I suspect this would be an identifiable one if I was better at hoverflies. But I'm not. I've put the net aside at the moment, so I'm not going to net it and take it and have a look proper. But these, again, a common group and a popular group of flies, hoverflies. I wouldn't say they're an easy group. Oh, and a spider. You're doing better than me. I'm staring at the camera. Okay. Oh, I've lost the fly now. It's flown off. So the other plant that we've got a lot of here is bluebell. And this is another ancient woodland plant. It's a good indicator that there's been woodland here for a long time. And in this reserve, we have many, many millions of these. They're a really attractive plant in the depths of the wood. In a couple of weeks' time, particularly when they're all out in the surface of the wood, the floor of the wood will just be bright blue with these. It's another of the common insects that we get at this time of year. It can be difficult. I don't think I'm going to be able to get this without flushing it. No, it's not yet flushed. Oh, there. So, I think that was, before it flew off, Anthophora plumipes, which is a bee. It's a bee that is sexually dimorphic in this country. The males, which that was, are sort of yellowy lemon coloured, and the females are a really dark black. Interesting, if you go to mainland Europe, you don't have that dimorphism. I think they all look the same, which I'm not quite sure why we have them that way. But that's the way of it. Thanks for the awards, by the way, Isa. For people who don't know, over here on the HAPS platform, you can give awards to people. The awards have a monetary value. What I will do with awards when I've got them, when I cash them out, is we'll use them to give to things. Thanks, Isa. I'm looking forward to your next broadcast, by the way, Isa, with the parasitic Hymenoptera person. That's a group of insects I find fascinating and I'm not particularly knowledgeable about, so I really look forward to finding out a bit more about them. Let's see what else I can find. So, just some people coming along here, so I'll make sure I point the camera in the other direction so they're not on the internet, because they're probably... I'm doing a broadcast, so I'm just pointing the other way so you don't get broadcast on the internet.
Ah, we don't mind. We don't mind being broadcast on the internet.
So let me see what else I can find. I'll walk a bit further up. This wood is probably the place I do most of my entomologizing and natural history studies. It's a little charity that I'm involved in running that runs just this little clump of woodland left here in London, and it's a sort of a real oasis from the city. It's essentially surrounded by suburbia. I mean, there are houses literally on the border of the reserve, but it does mean we've got this little wild space or semi-wild space where all sorts of things can live. I see there's a bumblebee. Let me see if I can zoom in on a bumblebee. It's there. So possibly you can see that bumblebee. It's Bombus terrestris, the buff-tailed bumblebee. This will be a queen. She'll be out scouting for somewhere to make her first nest. See if I can get a bit closer. Be careful not to put my shadow over things, because pretty much as soon as I do that, I've now lost where I'm looking. There it is. but assume that if my shadow goes over her, she'll probably fly off. So she will be looking for somewhere to build her first nest. She will lay her eggs in there, and she will continue to forage, go out and get nectar and pollen for her first brood. And then once she's reared her first brood, they will become workers, and then she will probably never leave the nest again. She'll just continue to lay eggs, produce them, and they will go out, do all the foraging, do all the providing for the nest. So my plan for this year is to get better at learning bees. Whether I'll manage it or not, I don't know. There's a difficult group, but there's been some really good literature on bee identification for the UK produced recently. So I've got more chance of learning to do it this year than I have in the past. And there she goes, having a bit of keeping herself nice and clean. This is probably the bumblebee we get most early in the year here. You can be out on a warm day almost at any time. There's a bee fly sitting down. If it sits still, I will go on to the bee fly instead. So where's my bee fly gone? Oops, there's the bee fly. So you can see it's got these dark borders to the wing. Dark bordered bee fly is one of the common names it's given. Bombylius major is the scientific name. They are lovely. I do like bee flies. They're just really cute. This big long proboscis out front that they use to drink nectar. People sometimes think it's a sting or it's going to do something nasty to them, but it's not. And there we go. It's flown somewhere else. You're bringing a bombyliid researcher on. Excellent. Well, that'd be really good. So bee flies are one of the things we use for public engagement because they're kind of cute. Those fluffy bodies and long proboscis, and they're kind of easy to see. So they're a good insect for public engagement. So I'll look forward to hearing from your bombyliid researcher. A fly hovering. Are we going to get that in the scope? No, it's flown out of sight. I'm always amazed by how Issa manages to go out and actually film things with it on these scopes. Every time I point a camera near an insect, it flies away. There's another clump of the bluebells. They're a lovely flower, and they're a flower that particularly the UK and the south of the UK in particular is a really important place for these plants nationally. They do occur elsewhere in Europe and they do occur further north in the UK than here, but southern England particularly is a place where an awful high proportion of these are. And this woodland is famed for large displays of these. Do I have a selfie stick? I haven't actually. I've got this on a gimbal, which does help a bit. And the reason I've got it on a gimbal, when I first started broadcasting out in the field, a colleague of mine who has a bit of issue with motion sickness commented he really couldn't watch the scopes because they were so wobbly. So I tend to have this on a motion capturing, so even if I wobble about like this, it's not too terrible. But yeah, maybe a selfie stick or something like that would be useful. Selfie stick gimbals, yes, that would be a good plan. And I could extend this. I have actually got this gimbal on a GorillaPod tripod, so I could probably do weird things with it. I'll have to experiment. So walking a bit further along, see here we've let this bit of the edge grow up a bit more with vegetation. And this is deliberate. What we do along this edge of the wood is we cut down this suckering elm, type of tree, the elm tree. We cut down the growth on something like a 4 or 5 year cycle. Got to go to your department meeting, okay? Well, have a fun departmental meeting to the extent that's possible, Lisa. And hopefully I'll see you on the bug scope at some point soon. So I was saying, yes. So along the edge of the reserve that we've been looking at here, one of the ways we manage it is we cut on a 4 or 5 year active cycle, I think it is, the growing back elm. And what that means is you've got these areas of different levels of growth, different levels, some areas with very low cover and lots of light and lots of flowers, and some areas with more of the mature woodland, or more of the suckering woodland rather. And that gives a variety, and again, variety is really important when you're thinking about managing a place like this for nature and for wildlife. Things often need different habitats, and something that needs bright sunny habitat, and there'll be something else that needs shady habitat, and there'll be weird things that need both. They need to have their larvae in the shade and their adults in the light. So having this variety really helps with managing and keeping things alive. And one of the other things that's really important is going out and working out what's here, which is what I'm trying to do. So we'll have a look quickly at another plant here. This white plant here is called Greater Stitchwort. Greater Stitchwort. Again, it's another plant that's native, fairly associated with ancient woodland, and it, as the thinking is, things that are called wort, W-O-R-T, were thought to cure something. In this case, presumably a stitch. If you go for a run, I'm not sure what you're meant to do with it, whether you're meant to eat it or whether you're meant to rub it on your side or do something else. But that's what this plant was thought to do. Let's see if we can find some more insects. There's a ladybird here, or a lady beetle for anyone who's American. Let me zoom in here. It doesn't want to focus on the insect, does it? If I go in enough, it'll have to focus on the insect because there's nothing else. So this is a 7-spot ladybird. It's the commonest ladybird we have here in the UK, probably. Although the invasive harlequin ladybird is pretty numerous too. Be looking, well, feeds on aphids, so maybe looking for some aphids to chew down on, but it doesn't seem to have found any. But that's our commonest ladybird. Quite a few of them. And one of the easier ladybirds to identify. There's not a lot of variety. There's a spider here. I'm not very good with spiders. In the identifying them, I don't have any problem with them. I'm not scared of them or any of that stuff, but where am I? Difficult to find. There we go. Now, what am I doing? There it is. Lovely spider. Oh, it's noticed me. I wonder if this is a nursery web spider. Anybody who's a spider expert who's on, if anybody's on, do shout if you know what the species is. I'll probably watch this back and have a go at identifying things a bit later. But a nice spider. Not technically an insect, of course, which I said I was looking for insects, but we'll make an exception for spiders because they're really interesting. So I'll head back now, gradually. Yeah, on the trunk of this tree here's a fly. Not even going to attempt to say what type of fly that is because I'd just make a fool of myself. But it's a type of fly sitting through me, warming up on the nice bark in the sun. So it's just that bit of sun coming out and lots of insects start to appear. Something else flying along here. It's going to settle. It's another bee fly. Bee flies are really cool. So I'll go into a bee fly again. See if I can do this without. It doesn't look like it. Is it going to fly away? No, it's not. Oh, there it is. It is going to fly away. No, that bee fly does not want to be on camera. Obviously shy, protecting its privacy. Let me wander a bit further along. The angle I'm at here, unfortunately, my shadow is going over the insects, and that tends to flush them off. So I'm going to walk on a bit more quickly, get a bit further on, hopefully get a slightly different angle, and then we will see if we can find a nice insect or two to end on. Could easily spend most of the day just along a fairly small stretch of woodland looking at what's here. There's a butterfly on the path here. This is a peacock butterfly, which is either a Natchez Io or a Glace Io, depending on which books you're using. Oh, flew off. Saw me coming. So the butterfly's starting to wake up. There's another butterfly here, and this peacock's coming back. There's our peacock butterfly that we were looking at before. It's flown back. There's also a fly just beside it, which you may be able to make out. And then further down the path, there's another peacock butterfly, and there was a common butterfly, but the peacock scared it off. Give it a moment and see if it comes back, and then if we can, we'll go and have a look at that. But they seem to fly off quite strongly. Doesn't look like it's going to come back. Right, let's try and find one more insect to end on. I will sign off and do a bit more looking at these insects in my own time, and look at seeing if I can pay a bit more attention and identify things slightly more thoroughly than I've been doing so far. So just coming along back to where we started. You can see my net there sitting where I abandoned it because I was finding it too difficult to manage both a net and a HAPS broadcast. What is going? And we'll end, I think, with, if it behaves itself, a final bee fly. Can never, if I can find it. Oops, no, it's flown off. Hang on. Hopefully that's in the scope there. Ah, it's the bee fly just flying off. So we'll end there, I think. Hope you found that interesting. Do get out wherever you are, find some interesting insects, find some interesting wildlife. And if you manage to identify things, if you manage to know what they are, or you manage to get good photos, do make sure you share the records with people, because people studying these things really do need to know what is where.